twist and turn my mind until I don't know who I am. Mirror man.
Good morning and welcome to an On the Whistle podcast. I am joined by Matt Candela. We've just beaten Newcastle. I'm feeling hyped. I'm feeling excited. Matt, just give us your hottest take. Let's just get straight into it. No fluff this morning. Let's just get straight into it.
What a wonderful second half. We really needed something because the first half was absolute dross. I was fearing for the worst. We didn't come out fast. But second half, we're really seeing the evolution of this team. They bounced back, saw good bounce back ability after the Liverpool game. And now we can go and enjoy the rest of the weekend. All the teams around us have got tough games. All the people we're competing with for fourth, West Ham playing Manchester City, United playing Chelsea, Spurs with a difficult trip to Burnley. And we've already got 3 points in the bag, so we can put our feet up for the rest of the weekend and enjoy that second half where we came through.
My hottest of takes is going to be for I don't know why I go on the internet during games. Just some of the drossy opinion that I read. Oh, I'm bored. That was rubbish. It's so painful. It's like we've just come off the back of a horrendous loss against Liverpool. Confidence is obviously not high. It's a young squad of players, and people are writing us off at halftime. And just for historical reference, for those that have, maybe only picked up Arsenal in the last 4 or 5 years, Arsenal are always bad with early kickoffs. You go to the ground early, you don't really have enough time to get a beer, you're a bit groggy, maybe a bit hungover. It takes a while for the atmosphere in the stadium to pick up. And it's the same with the players. It takes a while for the players. No one wants to be eating pasta at 7 o'clock in the morning, let me tell you. So the slow start was painful. There were some big chances missed, but my word, did we come out for the second half, and there were some spectacular individual performances. And look, I know it was Newcastle, but they played a deep block. We haven't been good against deep blocks, and there were some performances that didn't smell too good in the first half. So massive 3 points. We are still fifth in the league, and we go into the Man United game with a bit of confidence.
Yeah, no, I mean, for people who don't have longer memories, you've got to remember where we are in the year. We are in November the 27th, and historically, November has been one of the worst months for Arsenal fans.
Oh yeah,
it's where we've regularly gone, even under some of the best Wenger teams, we've regularly gone November without a win on occasion. So to basically escape November. The next game we'll be playing on Thursday is in December. To escape November in this positive place is a real welcome. And at one point, the commentator was talking about Joe Willock and said, Joe Willock started his last game for Arsenal a year ago to the day in a loss to Wolves at home. And if you go back a year in time and remember just how bad things were at Arsenal a year ago, we were in the midst of a sort of 10-game slump that only turned on Boxing Day. So to go into December in the vein of form that we're in now versus last year, where we're 6 points off top as of right now, well, it's quite a turnaround, really. So really, really happy and trying to look big picture. I know people don't want to hear big picture, but that's what it is.
Listen, I know people hate it when I splice tables, but I love doing it because it riles certain people. But as of now, and look, we played an extra game. We've accrued the most points in the Premier League since after the first international break, when we reimagined our back five and the whole starting 11. Liverpool was a terrible game, but Liverpool are absolute beasts at home. I don't think Virgil van Dijk's been beaten in the Premier League at Anfield. And we've got a young team, and their heads dropped, and there were some mistakes in the system that we haven't really seen this season. So you're right, to make it through a very dark month for Arsenal is impressive. But the most impressive thing for me is, historically, again, Arsenal teams, after long winning runs, tend to be pretty bad. I mean, even, go back 2 years. Unai Emery had a 22 game unbeaten run. And it didn't just fall off momentarily. It fell off for the rest of his career, and he got fired off the back of it. So the spirit that was shown today was really impressive. And again, I know it's Newcastle, but new manager bounce is a real thing. They were well organised. Things didn't really go our way in the first half. And sometimes Arsenal let those things happen to them. And it was nice to see the spirit in the second half. And it was nice to have a performance like that at home, because I don't feel like the belief was wavering in the stadium, but you just know what it's like being in the ground in games like that. It's just a bit shit. So super positive. I want to get into some of the specifics. Let's talk about the game of first halves, because the first half, 12 attempts at goal. I think 7 of them came from our fullbacks. Nuno Tavares had an end product like Emmanuel Boué at his absolute peak. Aubameyang missed from a yard out. I think Smith Rowe turned on the ball about twice in the entire half. Everything going back. Martin Odegaard's touch was off. Matt, do you have any insights into why that first half was so bad, and what was going wrong?
Well, we always say, what Arsenal's going to turn up in the first couple of minutes, and right from the off, we were slow, we were sluggish, our passing was off. It was just a very typical midday kickoff performance, to be honest. I mean, you see them over and over again, and it was frustrating because it felt like we'd established a bit of DNA around this fast start and trying to blow some teams away, and our best performances at home have been like that. So there are a few things that you could put your finger on. One of them was Odegaard coming in, and he came in, and I don't think he had a terrible first half. He was probably one of our better performers in the first half, but it did feel like certain players didn't know what to do, and Smith Rowe sort of got shoved out to this sort of weird space on the left-hand side a little bit and wasn't getting on the ball that much. We didn't have much verticality, and a lot of our play was going out to Tavares in the way that it used to go out to Tierney, and he was one of our main outlets, and his decision-making was very, very poor in the first half. I think he had about 8 shots on his right foot, which just seemed not the best. So it was just one of those things, really. It wasn't that great.
Late breaking news from the Sky Sports studio. Johnny Cochran is live from Disneyland Paris. His wife has let him out. We're going over to Johnny Cochran for the hottest of takes. It sounds like he's in a restaurant or a bar. Johnny, how are you doing today?
I'm in a sports bar at Disneyland. I mean, what's going on? Then I've just been watching the game. First of all, and you said it to me, Pete, and Matt as well, you've concurred, it is serious dad points when I've been able to usher my 2-year-old away and wife and watch the game. So I'm very happy with the way that things went down. And even happier, forget about dad's points, I'm talking about Premier League points. 3 points today, a mighty result. Very pleased. I can't even work at the angle. There we are. No, that's it. Well done. Very happy with the result from today. I thought that, because it has to be a brief one for me, because obviously I will have to get back to being a human that is married. But what I would say is particular highlights. Nuno Tavares, I thought, was my MOM. Absolutely sensational performance today. Not only, and I thought it was important because he had a difficult game, a game that I didn't watch at Anfield, but everyone came out and said, quite frankly, that he was at fault for at least one of the goals, maybe 2. And I thought that he came out today, and not only was he robust defensively, that non-penalty against Callum Wilson kind of was the epitome of that, but that was good tracking back and a good exemplification of his recovery pace. But going forward, he was the energy that we needed. And we talked at half-time via text about the fact that we were a little disjointed. It was frustrating. We didn't seem like we were getting going at all. But I did think that Nuno Tavares offered that energy to help us unlock a stubborn defence like Newcastle. Wonderful to see Gabriel Martinelli get off the sheet as well. How many times we talked about, we need you when you come in to, you know, to
Take
really
a chance.
turn the manager's head. Say that, listen, I'm here, I'm banging on the door, but when I do get on, I'm not just doing, you know, doggies, doing doggy shuttles from one defender to the other, just trying to show that I'm running. I'm going to make a difference. And what a finish that was. Also, special commendation for Sambi Lokonga, who comes in. Absolute disgusting. First off, if you want another, you know, the classic, Moonrakers, across the field, not a problem for him, but the nuance, the little delicate chips to play Saka in the first half, that's disgusting. Saka had a great opportunity through that Lokonga pass, but in general, I thought he looked assured and very, very polished. Party, I know it might have even been said in jest in our group chat that he might not be delivering, but I thought he was solid enough. But I do think that ultimately Lokonga's rise to the stage where he is now, to be able to knock at the big leagues, is in part due to the confidence he gains from playing alongside Partey. So overall, those were my main takeaways. But an absolute massive 3 points. Quite frankly, for every moment where we can talk about you don't need to win when you're away at Anfield if you're a team in our position and what we want to achieve, you absolutely have to win when you're at home to Newcastle, bottom of the league. I don't care if there's a new manager bounce ready how. You've got to win. You've got to take it away. We got the win. That's all I care about. It was a very important win. So well done, Arsenal. Come on, you go, Nuz.
Wow, what a welcome. He's gate crashed. He's gate crashed. Matt was talking about verticality. He was going deep. And you just jumped right in. We were just talking about it being a game of two halves, Johnny, and Matt was talking about historical sluggish openers. We've all been through there. We're all in our early 20s, so we remember it. Am I right, guys? Am I right? So let's get back into the game. We were talking about a game of two halves. Let's talk about the fullbacks, because Nuno Tavares and Tomiyasu both had an assist today. But I want to talk about Nuno Tavares. He was he had a mistake that really took the wind out of the sails against Liverpool. His first half, it wasn't a terrible first half. It was just terrible decision making and terrible end product. And in the second half, he was majestic. That was a man of the match performance. That was powerful. That was confident. But you know the thing that I love about Nuno Tavares, and there are very strong similarities with Adebayor. Adebayor could spend 60 minutes skying the ball over from 2 yards, but he'd be back again, and then he'd eventually get a goal. Nuno Tavares didn't let his head drop, and most players would have been like, "Sub me off. I've got an ankle injury." So to see Nuno Tavares come out in the second half and have such a deep contribution, both as a left back defensively, but really like he did more creatively than Odegaard did for the entire game. And that little assist, that deft touch, absolutely magnificent performance. Can Kieran Tierney get back in the side for Manchester United, guys? I'm not sure. I mean,
I was surprised when I saw Tavares starting, to be honest. But when you really think about it, you go, we've got this window of 3 games this week. We've got today, we've got United on Thursday, and then we got Everton on Sunday. And so they're going to have to share duties out between them. And I think Arteta's made the decision that he really wants Kieran Tierney. Well, maybe that's what he thought. Maybe that's harder now. I think he was thinking, I want Kieran Tierney to be raring to go and fit to play at Old Trafford on Thursday, because there's going to be Ronaldo. It's a whole different ball game at Old Trafford, and he maybe saw some parallels with Anfield. But that was my thought. But then Tavares has done what he's done, and now you're like, maybe he needs to keep his place. What do you guys think?
Johnny's
Let me just
trouble.
unmute myself because I am at Disneyland. 100%. Look, I think this is a lot of Arsenal fans will be looking at, a lot of Arsenal fans will be talking about. For me, Tavares wasn't a fad. Or maybe it started out as a fad. Maybe it was an experiment, but it's quickly turned into something different. Kieran Tierney, for all his merits, and he is a fantastic player, I don't think that anyone was looking at our team of last year saying that Kieran Tierney was the biggest problem we had. But he's injury prone. And it's more than just about your top level with Tierney. It's about, can you turn up week in, week out? Simple fact is he can't. And until he shows that he can, he's always liable for another younger, not necessarily younger, but a more available option who is willing to come in and do what he does, who's just going to be there. And Tavares, he gives us the energy that Tierney does. That's what's exciting. But also this notion that he was somehow going to be someone who was just defensively completely lax and, you know, he would occasionally go on a lung-busting run forward and that would be his... No, he's decent. He's decent. I like him. I don't think you should change the team at the moment. If we want to be serious about this idea that the Liverpool loss was a loss to a team who will undoubtedly be, challenging for the top of the league this year, not our playground this year, then we simply say that Tavares has been on a seriously good run of form and he deserves to keep his place. But what I was really pleased with Arteta for playing him in this game, because he's a young player that needs to continue that confidence. And if he had been dropped after that game, this is the way that you start seeing players get their confidence crushed after what seems like a bad result, so they don't get in the team. Then, guess what? They're not the same player when they come back into the team. He was played, so I appreciate that from Arteta. And I don't see how you can drop him after an MOM performance. He was the man of the match today. Of course, Saka would have been in and thereabouts, but it might have been a minute situation. But Tavares was as good as anyone on the pitch. There's no question about it. So, for me, I don't think that Tierney does get back in the team. It's just as simple as that.
I think I'm totally with you, Johnny. I thought it was great man management from Arteta to put him back in the side. Newcastle are bottom of the league. Like, you need to give Nuno a bit of a confidence boost. But the way that he completely owned that performance in the second half, because let's be honest, if he comes out and has a second 45 like his first, he doesn't get in the Man United starting 11. So he really took his chance. And again, I just love the character of some of these players. And I think you raise a great point there, Johnny. Sambi Lokonga could have easily been dropped today. Ainsley is chomping at the bit in midfield. I think that Arteta could have put somebody else in there, but he persisted. And that's a game where he really shines. And I like that he showed for the ball against, it wasn't much of a press today, but I like the way that he opened up play. I like the confidence of his passing. And I think we've got to be honest. He is the creative force in that pivot with Thomas Partey. I thought it was, I haven't seen it a lot this season. I thought Thomas Partey would be the bigger creator, but Thomas Partey's having to go back to his Atletico days. Having to sit in his box, give the ball to Sambi is going to be the shout moving forward. But I love his energy. I love the way he sprays the ball around, and I love the way that he opens up play, especially in moments where we really needed a lift and a bit of a push. I felt that he definitely delivered that today. So Nuno Tavares definitely in for the Man United game against in the week, and Sambi Lokonga as well. A great game. So let's also talk about another thing, and I think that this is really one of the more boring things that goes on. There's a really big narrative going around in the week about Arsenal's XG statistics this season, which I think is a little bit unfair. But you've got a whole group of arsonists online that always want to shift a positive narrative into negative territory. And one of the big pushes this season was apparently, according to some statistics, Arsenal have only had 7 big chances all season, despite scoring more goals than that. Arsenal had 6 big chances today. We nearly matched our big chance creation for the entire season. So every Arsenal fan could be happy today. And we are back. Sorry, Johnny logged in from the pub like an absolute hooligan, then shut down our live feed. So we're back on. Matt, I want to talk about Arteta. He's been accused of being terrible at in-game management. He's made some dodgy decisions in the past. The impact subs today were driven more by injury than choice, but Gabriel Martinelli comes onto the pitch. The game is on a knife edge. Talk about the impact sub, Matt. Talk about that moment for Martinelli and what it means for him.
Well, let's just rewind a little bit about how much we need someone to come and step forward in that attacking position. And we were talking before about the way that a year ago Smith Rowe came in and announced himself on Boxing Day and didn't look back and became, a stalwart of the whole team. And, there's this thing going on with Martinelli because he came in under Unai Emery. He scored 10 goals in that season. He was a wonder kid. And then he's just sort of sunk without trace a little bit. And there's all this sort of, does Arteta fancy him? Does he like him? Do they get on? Has he lost it? What's going on? And all of this sort of stuff. And it would just be such a shame if it didn't work out for Martinelli at Arsenal, because what we've seen is he's got every single raw attribute you need. He feels like he could be a Ronaldo type player for us in that he has that dynamism. He can shoot, he can head, he can do everything. But he needs to start delivering, and he hasn't been given a chance for a little while. He's sort of had a few cameos, and he really, really needed to make an impact. And to come on like that, I can't think of a better way for him to get the confidence that he needs, because really he's just you're looking for a spark with a player like that. You're looking for a spark where they suddenly feel like they're back, their confidence is up, and they become the player that they can be. And for him to come on and then something like 84 seconds later, the beautiful, deft finish with a great run, a great pass first time from Tomiyasu. And you look at it and you go, he's probably the only player in our team who could really score a finish like that. There's not many of them. And it really showed what he's all about. So the hope really, and I think he was really, really strong after he came on. He looked dangerous throughout. He looked committed. He looked up for it. He looked hungry. The runs that he makes everyone else look better, and especially like the likes of Odegaard and Smith Rowe. So, I'm just hoping that this is a catalyst, because it was just a outrageous piece of skill, and I for one would love to see if he can start to become an answer for us moving forward in that number 9 position.
Yeah, I think that little cameo performance of 30 minutes today showed us a lot of things. Firstly, it showed what we lack up front. I know that Aubameyang is a great finisher, and I know that he's pressuring a lot more, but the hustle from Martinelli, the runs that he makes, the chances that he takes, the enthusiasm, we just don't have that in Lacazette or Aubameyang, and I think that that's a real shame. But you are right. There aren't many players of that age that are scoring goals like that in the Premier League, and the pressure he must personally be putting himself under, because he knows he didn't play well against Brentford at the start of the season. He's been largely anonymous. He hasn't had a good run since it all went wrong for him, really, at Aston Villa. But young players go through peaks and troughs, and what a way to announce yourself. And also, what a headache to give Mikel Arteta going into the Manchester United game. He looked hungry. He's power and his pace. He was leaving Newcastle players for dead. And I wonder if we're going to see what Arteta has been working on with him over the last 6 or 7 months. He made some quite sharp decisions. It didn't look quite as kamikaze. He looked a little bit more controlled. But the explosion going forward is something that we've lacked. And I think that if Saka's out, that's not a bad player to be coming in. That's not a bad player to be coming in, because Man United players won't be knowing what to expect on Thursday.
Well, I think the other thing is what he needs to do is exactly what Aubameyang doesn't do. He needs to add real physicality to that role up front, and he looks a little bit bigger. He looks a little bit more composed in that way. So it's not about just running around from shuttling, as Johnny said earlier, from sort of place to place on the pitch. It's about being physical, letting the defender know you're there, running at the right moments, picking your chances, pulling people around. And I think he did feel like a little bit like he was doing a little bit more of that. But he just had a little bit more presence around him when he came on, and sometimes that presence is sort of it's sort of an intangible, but he had a bit more of an aura around him, especially after scoring that goal. And that's what it does when players know you're the kind of player who can take chances like that. It worries them. It's scary for them. So long may it continue. I'm hoping he's not needed on Thursday, because that will mean that Saka is fit, and I think it felt like a knock rather than a strain. So I'm pretty confident that he'll be back on Thursday. Otherwise, I don't think he'd have been coming and trying to get back on if that was a strain. So we'll see. But this is my most exciting time of the season, this Christmas period. And I think somebody said it, one of the commentators on the feed I was watching, but you're looking at every single time a player goes down, you're worried that they're not going to, that they're injured, because there's so many games coming up. And already just in this week, United and Everton. So I think Martinelli is going to find himself with, an hour of football to be played between those two games. And it really is up to him to go and put down another marker in those 60 minutes or so that I expect him to get over the next week in those games. And if he can get a goal that helps us get a point or three in one of those two games, he will really be setting himself up nicely for the second half of the season.
Martinelli is one of those players that Arsenal fans just want to do well. There's always a collection of players you will forgive bad performances, you'll forgive the inconsistency, because you just want to see him do well, because he's the type of player that gets a sleepy crowd off of their feet. He's I think did Wenger say a bang player when he was describing Robin van Persie once? I don't know who said it, but I think Gabriel Martinelli is a bang player. He's the sort of player that normally ends up at Liverpool. And he's the sort of player that we haven't really had a lot of over the last 7 or 8 years. Just a big powerhouse player that frightens defenders. So great to see him back in the starting 11. Not the starting 11, because he didn't start, but it's great to see him back in the first team. I really hope that that's the start of something special, because we know what happened last time. We all remember that run under Emery. One thing that I did notice, I thought he was quite good in the air, but for the corner, he sat at the edge of the box. He didn't go in for the corner. That was an interesting choice.
He scored a lot of headers when he first came in the League Cup.
He did, yeah.
He's a good finisher with his head, so I'd love to see him getting stuck in there, because heading is something of a lost art now. I don't think you're even allowed to head the ball more than a couple of times in training. So I love it. I love a good header.
Yeah, me too. So talking of young players, there's a real difference when Saka and Smith Rowe aren't quite at the races. And again, game of two halves, but Smith Rowe was just passing back towards his defense and his midfield, barely turned into space in the first half until right at the end. Saka was present, but it wasn't forceful. And I think, maybe for the second or third time this season, the opening to the second half was Saka taking the game by the scruff of the neck. And great players can do that. Thierry Henry used to do that. Rob Perez used to do that. Lundberg used to do it. And we're starting to see a little bit of that from Saka and Smith Rowe. And it's so exciting, because the average age of those two is 20 or 21? And did you feel that he took control of that game today in the second half? Was he the catalyst?
100%. I mean, I think it started about 5 minutes before the end of the first half. And he just sort of woke up, and he had that beautiful little piece of skill where he jinked between a couple of Newcastle defenders and hit it across the goalkeeper. But, he came out for the second half raring to go. And I just love that finish. Like this, we all love the controlled finish, but there is something about when someone lashes it across the goalkeeper right into the bottom corner, and that's exactly what he did. So he came out, he was raring to go, he was fired up. It was great to see, and I loved to see that. I think I've seen a couple of comments saying I don't like Smith Rowe and Odegaard in the same lineup, and I'd love it if I wasn't saying this, but I tend to agree. I feel like Odegaard takes a lot of oxygen away from Smith Rowe when he plays. He seems to be given more of the Smith Rowe role, and Smith Rowe has to sort of find a newer niche, sort of often on the left-hand side. And he's done it well on times. I think against Spurs last season, he was outstanding. Smith Rowe in that little pocket and gave that left fullback a difference. But Smith Rowe's a better player than Odegaard. I think that's just a reality of it. It's why he's our number 10 and he plays every game. And so I do feel like they have to find, it sort of takes them half a game or so to find the natural spaces in the game with which they're both expected to play. So hopefully we can figure that out, because I think I like Odegaard as well. So, but certainly the second half was way better from both of those. And look, the reality is they are their engine. They're the beating heart of Arsenal right now. And so when they're not firing, there's very little else happening. You know, we're relying on the fullbacks. So, and I think other teams have, especially Liverpool, I think we're very good at realizing that. They basically said, if we shut these two down, Arsenal aren't doing anything, and that was certainly the case. So good to see them back amongst in it. They're young. It's going to be tricky over Christmas. At some point, we're going to need to rest them. I don't really want to be resting them against United on Thursday, but we're going to have to figure that out. And maybe that Norwich Wolves little section of games immediately after Christmas Day can be a chance for them to get a much needed break and spend some time with their families. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely a positive effort from those two today.
Yeah, and let's continue the positivity train, because I know that Johnny touched on it earlier before he destroyed the whole podcast. Sambi Magic. Sambi Lokonga today was majestic. 93% pass completion rate. Smith Rowe was like 76 in the first half. So that's just to sort of, give you an idea of how good Sambi was. Sambi Lokonga created 6 chances. I think that's more than Mesut Ozil created in 2 seasons at Arsenal. So are we starting to see a superstar midfielder emerge here? Is Sambi Lokonga seeing that Granit Xhaka is back in training, and is he trying to make it as difficult as possible for Arteta to put one of his favourites back in the side? What did you think of that Sambi performance today? Are we seeing a maturity that maybe we didn't earlier on in the season coming through in his game?
I think the best thing that you can say about him is it feels like he's been there a lot longer than he has. He feels like a natural in there. Centre mid as a young player is a really, really difficult position to come in and play. I don't know if people remember, but when Arsene Wenger used to bring his most talented young players into the team, he wouldn't bring them straight into centre midfield. He'd play them on the left-hand side for a little while, because it would be an opportunity for them to figure out what it was all about, and it's slightly less. You can be slightly less exposed when you're on the flank. And Jack Wilshere and Aaron Ramsey, and they all started out on a wide position and coming in. And when Lokonga has had to come in and fight right in the middle of the Premier League park every single game from the beginning, and I think he's been absolutely outstanding at that. And it really makes you realize just how hard it was last season before we made these additions, because this season we've had Granit Xhaka and Kieran Tierney out for prolonged periods of time. Imagine if we didn't have Tavares. Imagine if we didn't have Lokonga. So it would be a disaster. We'd be in 15th place in the league probably. So he's come in, he's done really well. I'm looking forward to Xhaka being back and adding some competition in those places and being able to give some of these players a breather. But some of the squad depth is looking extremely positive. And I thought that ball in the first half for Saka was outstanding, and it really showed
a real crowd pleaser. Hollywood
really showed another part of his game. And imagine if he can start doing those. It had a bit of the Alex song about it at one point, didn't it?
No, that's unfair. That's unfair. You take that back.
Let's hope he doesn't. I think Alex Song did one of those that led to a goal, and then he started that every pass became one of those Hollywood passes. But
wasn't that the pass that he made for Robin van Persie against Everton? That where he volleyed it into the bottom corner. I was right behind that goal.
Yeah. So no, he's looking good. the team's looking good. Squad depth much more positive. So onwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love Sambi. I think Surf Rosa in the comments said that he was man of the match. For me, Nuno Tavares was man of the match because of the holistic view of what he went through against Liverpool and what he went through in the first half. But Sambi was so consistent all game. He's the heartbeat of that midfield at the moment. Question is, can he do it against United? We've seen a couple of games this season where if he's put under pressure, he'll make mistakes. I think Palace, he made a bad mistake, and against Liverpool, it wasn't his finest hour. But these young players, man, 21 years old in a Premier League starting 11 centre midfield is exceptional. And we're kind of normalizing the fact that these young players are doing what they're doing for Arsenal at the moment. But it really is top drawer, especially considering some of the senior players that let us down over the years.
Well, I think someone said Arsenal have named a starting 11 with an average age of 24 and under for 10 consecutive league matches for the first time since December 1987, 1988.
Ooh, what does that mean? That's George Graham.
And I think we know what happened the year after. So, and I think what I loved about the podcast that you guys did with Perry Groves was all the parallels that were made with George Graham and the way he went about changing the culture. But there's something brewing with this young team and the young players. They're not just young, talented players coming through. They're young players with character who are not going to miss this chance to stake a claim to be a first teamer, a regular first teamer at the age of 20 or 21 or 22, and they have this steel, this metal about them. And Sambi's one of those. He may have some silky skills, but he's definitely got some steel about him.
Yeah, agree. Wow, what a statistic that is for the age of the squad. That's fantastic. All right, so we're going to move on to another topic. I know you want to talk about this because let's talk about the defense. Is it for real? Ben White, Gabriel, and Ramsdale I want to talk about because we know that Tomiyasu and Tavares were absolutely exceptional today. But I wanted to highlight the general calmness of the defense today. And I also wanted to talk about Aaron Ramsdale because the big question mark around him was, can you do it when you've only got one shot to deal with? And yet again, he shows up for a John Joe Shelvey monster shot and he keeps it out and tips it over the bar. Like, how good is this core that sits right through the middle of our defense at the moment? How good can they become?
Well, I just love the fact that they're all getting a run of games. I think it was last season when we couldn't field the same two centre halves for 2 games in a row, let alone 8 or 9 games in a row. It was constant rotation. It was Holding. It was Mari. It was Kolasinac. It was anyone who can play there. It was Kieran Tierney filling in. It was a complete nightmare. It was 5 at the back. It was 4 at the back. There was just like absolutely. And you can say what you want, but it wasn't Arteta's fault because we couldn't keep anyone fit. I mean, that was the bigger problem. We had COVID, we had Gabriel come in and then be sick. So I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is this solidity is really, really helping in those 3. And it would be great if we had a centre half on the bench who was really, really pushing those 2 for a starting position. And maybe that's where Saliba can come in, although, it doesn't feel like it. But that would be great if someone like that could come in and really stake a claim to be starting back there or could play a run of 10 games if one of these players get injured. Because at the end, Ben White went down after a little collision. And I'm thinking, we really can't live without Ben White at the moment. If Gabriel goes down, he was outstanding and physically standing up to Callum Wilson all game. We can't do without him. So it's great, but we don't have squad depth there. Rob Holding is not in the same class as those 2 coming in. But yeah, it's super positive. And then, we're all Ramsdalians. We love him. Just want to keep this form up. And I think the real question is going to be, at some point he's going to make an error. Every goalkeeper does, and we've just got to hope that he bounces back from it. But everything about his personality, his character, suggests that he will, and that he's not the kind of player to dwell on stuff. He enjoys being out there. He seems to love being Arsenal goalkeeper. So yeah, there's so much to be positive about. I mean, it's difficult to say that because let's not forget we're talking about the same defense that played a week ago and conceded 4 goals. So it's not all perfect. And we're going to have to see. I think Tavares. I know we're sort of focusing on the other bits of the defense, but I think there's a vulnerability defensively on the left-hand side of that defense at the moment. Still, you sort of saw that a little bit when you had someone who was as good as Salah playing in that little hole, dropping between the centre half and the fullback, and we didn't quite know how to deal with it. Similar to the way we got exposed by Reece James against Chelsea. In that sort of pocket. So the best teams know how to get in between the spaces, and then it becomes more about how the whole team defends as opposed to how the back 4 defends. It's like, has that defense synced up with Lokonga and Partey so that when there are runners coming from midfield that we're robust? It feels like that's the bigger weakness. We're great at defending when it's a more static way of playing, but when the opposition is very dynamic, we still have some problems. So we'll see, but yeah, all heading in the right direction, and great for Ramsdale to get another clean sheet. I mean, our defensive record has been really, really good when you when you take away the 4 goals at Anfield, the 5 at City, the 2 at Chelsea. But
listen, we're after the international break, which when we got this defense together, we have the 3rd best defense, and everybody else has got to play today. Chelsea have conceded 3, City have conceded 5, and Arsenal have conceded 8. And on the attacking front, Arsenal have scored the same amount of goals as Manchester City since we got those players together. So maybe some hope on the attack front. I think there were a couple of criticisms. I don't want to give Ben White a pass. I agree with Wenger Kid, who said first half Benjamin was too slow to release the ball. I agree with that. Sometimes he looks for the perfect outlet, which is commendable. But if he's slow out the back, I feel like the play is tends to be a bit slow. Maybe a little bit unfair because in the second half he set Tomiyasu free to assist Gabriel Martinelli. And I just want to say, Alvin Felix, who was with me at 2:00 in the morning yesterday when I was trying to set up the YouTube, he was in there because I put the schedule out earlier, and he said this team has a lot of untapped potential, which we can bring them out in the long run. And I'm sure in the long run, we are definitely going to bring out some of that untapped potential. There is one bad thing that we've got to talk about today. Aubameyang stinking out the joint again. It doesn't look like it's a lack of effort or passion. It just looks like decline. I don't know. Or it just looks like he's not suited to the system. He missed from a yard. We've seen him miss 2 penalties so far this season. He looks out of sorts. He looks pained. Is there any way out of this for him? Or do we think that this is just the reality that he's not suited to the way that we want to play moving forward?
Yeah, he looks old to me. It's sort of all hit him at the same time. It's why clubs don't give big contracts to people over 30, because sometimes when you get after that age, it feels like it's not even gradual. It feels like you can fall off a cliff a little bit after like an injury or an illness and just not come back, and that certainly feels like what it feels a little bit like with him. I don't think it's terrible. I think he's still more than capable of getting 12 to 15 goals this season for us, which is not a disaster. But we desperately need reinforcements. The reality of his new contract is he's only got 1 more season after this one, right?
He's into the final year of his deal.
Into the
Lacazette
deal.
out.
So you could argue that we needed to do that deal because we're still going to need him for a year and a half while we bed in a new striker at the end of this summer. So I don't think it's the worst deal in the world. I don't think it's anywhere like the Mesut Ozil situation.
No, definitely not.
So that's some relief, but what we would all give for a marquee striker signing. I'm such a huge fan of that Vlahovic. I'm not quite sure how you say his name, but he's an absolute monster, and just like the feel good vibes that would come through. He's only got a year left on his contract, so the feel good vibes that would happen if we could bring someone like that into to lead the line. But hopefully, that's the opportunity for Martinelli. I think he can come in and he can cement himself as the striker in this young Arsenal team if he takes his chances. That there is no one standing in his way. So I'm preferring to look at the positives, but that miss in the first half, I mean, that's the problem when you're all about finishing and that's all. You can't miss chances like that. So
yeah, you've got to take your chances. And Gabriel Martinelli took his today. And I wonder whether and not that Saka doesn't have energy, but he doesn't have energy in the same way that that Martinelli does. And I wonder whether having a bit of a live wire next to Aubameyang might help open up the game a little bit, and he can play more as a second striker, finishing up. Because his game has always been predicated off of, goal poaching and hanging off the last shoulder. I don't think he has that pace now, and I don't think that we give service in that way. So it's
well, we just don't really. Football's just changed a little bit. I think, the amount of Arsenal goals that you used to see where we had we would play players through and they'd be 1-on-1 versus goalkeepers. That used to be such a an Arsenal way of scoring goals. Ian Wright, Thierry Henry, it was just a constant. Whereas it feels like now, you have to work a lot harder to unpick defenses. They're so much more organized. They sit deeper against teams like us, and I think it's just got harder to score goals. And I think he's struggling with that adaptation. There's no chance of just being feeding in balls where he sits on the shoulder of last defenders. It's a different game right now.
So one last topic to take on. We've got a comment on Twitch. A bit worried about Odegaard. In the first half, he couldn't trap a ball in the pocket on the half turn. He lost it several times, which if he's our number 10 isn't great when teams sit deep against us. Is there a larger concern about Odegaard not hitting the level, or do we think that this is just nature of the beast when you sign young players, that it takes a while for them to adapt, and when they're not getting a lot of minutes, sometimes it can be rusty and clunky?
Yeah, I think it's just the nature of the beast, to be honest. I think he's going to have plenty of chances. I think he hit a good free kick that on another day, he sort of came back into the centre, could have gone in. I think he's a good player. We're going to have to figure out how they play together. And I think that's another example of, you think it's their fault, but actually with a different striker, we could look like a different team playing. Our midfield could look different as well. So he was unfortunate, Odegaard, in that really he was the biggest loser out of that great run that we went on. He was the person who lost his place and never got in. But, he got his opportunity today. I think he could get another opportunity on Thursday. I think he'll start again, Odegaard. I think it'll be a similar team. So yeah, he'll come good. He's a good player and he's got the right character. So I think he's definitely part of the long-term plans. I don't think anyone is worried about him. I think what you realize is, you really need a lot of squad depth now in the Premier League, especially around moments like this. We would be absolutely fucked without Nuno Tavares, with Kieran Tierney having been out for a while. We would be screwed without Lokonga, with Xhaka having been out for so long. And you need a squad. I still think our squad is very light in terms of top quality. So we're going to be calling on Odegaard. He's going to play 20, 30 more games this season.
So I agree with that. Before we go, we should talk about new manager situations at a couple of different clubs. Conte after Spurs' loss to the lowest ranked Europa Conference side in the week, said that he is not a magician and that the Spurs squad is not at the level. Normally, it takes a few months for managers like Conte to start rolling the squad under the bus. It seems like he's out there now making his feelings known. Is it clear to you that he's got a bigger challenge on his hand than he had at Chelsea? Are we starting to see that rock star managers need rock star players? Where do you see this going with Conte at Spurs? Because
I don't believe he didn't know exactly what he was getting himself into before. So, I mean, we all know exactly what he's inheriting there. There's a big mess to sort out, and we know that he's very good at sorting things out. He's a good operator, and I can't believe that he didn't go into this job with some assurances around budget for transfers and the like. So I think he knows exactly what he's getting. I think it's part of a strategic decision to let the fans and the staff and everyone in the club understand where in the process they are. He knows he can do it right now because there's not a huge amount of love for the team, whereas he can really assert himself. So no surprises there. It was obviously great to see them lose to such a shitty team, and long may it continue. And let's hope it's been a death knell for so many teams. And I think I remember I saw a great tweet from you, Pete, where you said, "This is it. If Conte can't solve Spurs, then they've lost. It's like the final villain at the end of a video game, because if he can't do it, nobody can." So I am desperately hoping that he can't do it. He's going to improve them. He can't make them any worse. But I think the biggest thing is the Harry Kane situation. It's just such a glorious situation, because Harry Kane, I think, is now at the place where it's great if he stays, and it's great if he goes. I think that there isn't a win-win situation for Spurs. I think he's past his prime. I think he holds the team back. So in that sense, it's fine for him to stay. And on the other side of it, he's a talisman for them, and he's symbolic of good times. And he also scores 15 goals a season, even when he's playing badly. So you've still got to replace them with something. So, yeah.
It's kind of beautiful. They've got a short-term manager. They've got long-term problems. Conte always needs money. Even when he went to Inter Milan, he still had money to spend, and he had a great football operator in Beppe Marotta to help him along the way. When he went to Chelsea, everyone talks about that like it was a genius move. He took over a very well-trained Jose Mourinho team that had won the league within 2 prior seasons. It was loaded full of stars, and he basically put a new formation in, tweaked the attitude, and he scored 93 points, but fell off a cliff the season after and never recovered. I think that people are going to see that the Premier League is incredibly competitive, and a manager alone cannot get you to where you need to be. You need to have good infrastructure. You need to have good player recruitment. You need to have a vision and an idea, and everybody needs to be pulling in the right direction. So I'm sure Conte will get Spurs around top 4, because that's just what he does. But I think it's going to be way more difficult and way more slower. And look, losing to Mura shows that there are deep problems there. They had a £65 million midfielder. Ndombele was absolutely dreadful. So it'll be interesting to see who he clears out, and it'll be interesting to see what his take on Harry Kane is, because like you say, you can't really have a passenger, even if they are absolutely elite. And the next manager that I want to talk about, Matt, and this will be our farewell to the podcast today. Ralf Rangnick, a Allegro favorite over the years. The Leipzig architect has taken the job at Manchester United for 6 months, and then after, he's got a 2-year consultancy project. Did Man United finally make a good decision?
Well, I don't know about you, but as soon as I saw that, my heart sank. I think Ornstein gave it the thumbs up, and it was like, oh shit, this is actually happening. And he's exactly the kind of person that they need, and the approach that they're making, where he comes in and essentially does an audit on where they're at, and then beds in a new manager at the end of the season that could still be him, but it's more likely to be someone else that he's recommended, and he maybe elevates himself up into some sort of director of football role, call it a consultant or whatever, is really, really positive, smart thinking. And the reality is, when you've got that much money, sooner or later you're going to make the right decision. So it's going to happen. They're going to improve. He's gonna make them a lot more competitive. Again, you've got to unpack so many poor decisions that they've made in terms of recruitment. The great thing is they've got no playing identity, Manchester United. So it's a big job, but it's a big job and it's a small job because they've just got, they're absolutely, that squad is loaded with talent, and so you feel like he could come in. I mean, just talking about those two managers, you have to say that Conte would have been a perfect hire for Manchester United.
I know, yeah, but Man United must have told his people no. Yeah, because I can't believe Conte was like, oh wow, I didn't expect Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to get sacked. Everyone knew that was happening. I guess his people must have said, "Is this job open to us? Are you interested?" And they just must have said no.
Yeah,
yeah, they want to do it properly.
Yeah, so we're playing them on Thursday. I'm excited about that game. We've never traditionally been very good at Old Trafford. We won last year, obviously, but apart from that, we're pretty terrible there. We've got a couple of draws, and so I think it's a real opportunity for us. I want to see us get. I think we need to get 3 points from the next 2 games to stay on track. However we do it, 3 points or 2 points, 2 draws wouldn't be the end of the world, but a win and a defeat would actually be better, probably from a long-term approach. So if we could get something on Thursday night, that would be great. I'll take a point right now.
Yeah, a big away performance would be nice. Even if I don't want to talk about the worst case scenario here, but getting beaten by Liverpool hurt because the performance was pretty terrible in the second half. Like, we are good enough to go and beat Man United. I'm sorry, we are more. They are in disarray at the moment, but like you say, they've got the individual talent to destroy you. It doesn't matter whether they've got a playing system or not. When you've got a squad that's that expensively assembled, you've got an opportunity. But we also have the opportunity to go at their backline. It's not good.
Yeah, I just wish that the strongest part of our team was our forwards rather than our defense. So we'll see. I'm not feeling that optimistic about it right now. I feel like they're going to have a manager bounce. It's a night game. It's all of that sort of stuff. But maybe I'll change my mind. I'll take a point.
I will too. All right, Matt. Well, thank you for joining to our split video podcast today. If you are listening to this and you were on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. I love that. And we will be back for an On the Whistle against Manchester United. If you haven't had the chance, take a listen to the Perry Groves podcast. It was absolutely magnificent. One of the most listened to podcasts we've had so far. And again, thank you if you're listening or you're watching on video. We really appreciate all the comments and the engagement that go on it. And on that note, ciao for now.